in Malaysia, majority of our mushroom poisoning are from chlorophyllum mollifitis. I think this is generally shared around the world because we also have chlorophyllum mollifitis in the northern hemisphere. We do not get many other species of mushrooms like Amanita. It's very rare. Even the case that we had, we did not have to treat that patient for amatoxin poisoning. There are a few cases of Pleurocyvella porogens. As you can see, the Pleurocyvella porogens is actually edible. But in certain population, those patients with renal injury, acute kidney disease, end-stage renal failure, somehow rather, Pleurocyvella porogens contains a particular unstable amino acid. And this amino acid seems to cause encephalopathy in patients with kidney disease. So it's not everybody can develop encephalopathy. Those that develop are patients with renal failure. As you can see, the majority of our poisoning is from chlorophyllum mollifitis. Next. So we have had quite a few cases of mushroom poisoning. This is a family of family who developed mushroom poisoning that you can see. The children are holding the mushrooms that they picked. They picked from the yard. Okay, next. And this one is a recent case in Kedah where a couple harvested these mushrooms and then developed mushroom poisoning. So these are the mushrooms that they were eating. Next. So how do we classify mushrooms? For us as clinicians, we can't classify them based on how mycologists classify them. Because if we do that, it's going to be very difficult for us to manage. We can't identify the mushroom. If you have a patient who comes in with mushroom poisoning and they bring in the specimen, would you be able to identify what species it is? I'd say probably 80 to 90% you won't be able to, right? So knowing how to identify the species is not going to be very practical for us. So how do we go about? We look at the clinical signs and symptoms. The clinical signs and symptoms can give us clues to what are the possible toxins that is contained in that particular mushroom. So the first one we look at is cyclopeptides. So these are mushrooms that contain amatoxin or phytotoxin. And the species of mushrooms that contain these toxins are Amanita. But then again, not all Amanita species contains amatoxin. Some Amanita are edible. Some Amanita contains other toxins other than amatoxins. So it's not necessarily that if you have a mushroom poisoning and that mushroom turns out to be Amanita, it's not necessarily that you may get amatoxin toxicity. Okay? Now this amatoxin is heat stable, and the problem is it interferes with DNA. It is toxic to the liver. You guys see amatoxin toxicity where you come from? No? Yes, no. Okay. Are you medical students? Right, okay. Okay. So the thing about amatoxins or these cyclopeptides is the clinical cause. The clinical cause, right? The onset of symptoms give us a clue. These patients who come in patient comes in with a late onset of GI symptoms. So generally, if you have a patient who ingested mushrooms and come in with vomiting and diarrhea, you need to ask, how soon did these symptoms develop from the time you ingested the mushrooms? If the time of ingestion to the onset of symptoms is generally more than 5 hours, then you should be worried. The longer the onset of symptoms, the higher the risk of very toxic mushroom you're dealing with. Okay? The earlier the onset of GI symptoms, the better news it is for you and the patient. Right. So some species that we're talking about, the vulva, that you can see there, the vulva is partially from the ground, it will move up as the mushroom grows into a full maturity. So when you, later on when we talk about patients who come in and they bring in the specimens, or sometimes we tell them, can you please go back and get more specimens, or we tell the family to bring in more specimens, fresh specimens for us for identification. So you have to tell them that you cannot pluck the mushroom. You have to dig it from under the ground because we want to see if this particular species has vulva. Okay? Next. Right. So some of the species in Thailand, they do get Amanita species poisoning as we progress further up north, Thailand, Vietnam into China. They get a lot more Amanita poisoning. Amanita species and Russula species. Next. Okay, so this is some of the poisonous mushrooms found in southern China. You can see there's a lot of Amanita species, some Galerina and Russula subnigricans that causes rhabdo. Next. Right. So, in this picture, can you hazard a guess which are the ones that's edible? Mana lang?
Tak nak makan semua.
It's not from the supermarket. I will not eat it. Yeah. The rule.
If you go to a restaurant, you serve wild mushrooms.
We ban those restaurants.
Okay, so which one would you pick for your lunch today? Upper right. Upper right. Okay. Any other hazard yang kat belakang? Kat mana? Yang merah. Yang merah. Oh.
But I think we have that in Malaysia.
We do, but our color is orangish yellow. The right, upper right, is chlorophyllum mollifitis. So you will be vomiting your toenails out. It's the GI irritant. The red one is Amanita muscaria. So chlorophyllum mollifitis is poisonous. The red one, is the one that I harvested myself. There's Amanita muscaria. It contains a very interesting toxin. Some people look for this mushroom to get the hallucinogenic effect. But there is a but. So I'm going to do afterwards. The one on the left, upper and lower, is also Amanita species. The one lower is Amanita vaginata, that is edible. The one above is Amanita virosa, that is highly toxic. The one that is edible is on the right below. That is Erythrositis atau cendawan busuk. Yang tu yang kita boleh makan. That is edible. Pretty good. Tasty. So what this trying to tell you is that You cannot identify mushrooms just based on looking at this because we are not mycologists. Okay, next. Some mushrooms contain muscarine. Muscarine, as you know, is similar to acetylcholine, right? Or muscarinic nicotinic. So muscarine acts on your muscarinic receptors, causing your sludge dumbbells, salivation, hyperemesis, diarrhea, meiosis, right? We had 3 cases in Sabah with 1 death from eating muscarine-containing mushrooms. Okay, what did they die of? They died of severe dehydration because they were in the interior, elderly couple. So when they developed muscarine toxicity, the vomiting, diarrhea, they became severely dehydrated. And of course, they're also bradycardic. So how do we treat this? We can give IV fluids, and if they are bradycardic, we give atropine. Okay, next. Hallucinogenic. A lot of people have a lot of interest in this. These are the little brown mushrooms. See, I see you taking pictures already. And which frequently you find it growing on cow dung. Yes, there were people looking for farms with cows and particularly looking at the cow dung for these little brown mushrooms. These are psilocybin containing mushrooms. And remember the little red one just now I was talking about, Amanita muscaria? These are the most tasty mushrooms if you eat. Why? Because it contains ibotenic acid. Ibotenic acid has a molecular structure that is almost similar to glutamine, monosodium glutamate, or MSG. It's tasty, the umami flavor. So when you take this mushroom, the ibotenic gives you the stimulant effects, the hallucinogenic effects. These are what people look for. But eventually, ibotenic acid will be metabolized into mucimol. And mucimol acts on GABA. It is a CNS depressant. So from getting high, progressively you go into a coma. Okay? Fortunately, this does not last long because your body will metabolize mucimol and excrete it out, and you will wake up, hopefully, on your own. Okay? While you are in coma, we need to support your airway. So sometimes we need to intubate these kind of patients. So Amanita muscaria, as you can see, can you appreciate the vulva? Nampak tak? Dekat bawah mushroom tu, dia ada satu sac, the vulva. Okay, so these are Amanita species, but you can see that this Amanita does not contain amatoxin. This is amatoxin. Okay, toxin dia lain. It's ibotenic acid and mucimol. Next. Okay, these are mushrooms, the Cortineria species. Cortina. Cortina is a Greek word that means spider webs. So these mushrooms, if you can appreciate, below the cap, you see those small, fine, spidery, okay, they macam spider web. Okay, so these are Cortineria species. It contains orellanine, and orellanine is nephrotoxic. But patients who ingest these mushrooms do not develop the nephrotoxicity immediately. It usually happens within 1 or 2 weeks later. Okay, next. So this is a case of a family who mistaken a Cortinarius mushroom with chanterelles. Chanterelles is highly sought after mushroom with a very delicate flavor. So biasanya kalau diorang pergi forage jual mushroom ni, diorang akan cari lah these chanterelles, spiny mushrooms, the bullets, these matsutake, these are the ones that people prize in the forest. But when you don't know how to identify and you mistakenly identify this family ate a coordinates mushroom containing oralinine and developed renal failure requiring lifetime dialysis. Okay? So my advice is don't forage. Don't. If you want to eat mushrooms, buy store-bought mushrooms. Okay, so this is our favorite, the chlorophyllum mollidities. You can see in the top picture that these mushrooms are in various stages. The one on the right with the gills exposed is trying to show you that that is a mature specimen where the spores are plenty. And when at a mature stage, when there's plenty of spores, you can see the gills are greenish in color. Before they are fully matured, the gills are white. Okay, so these are GI irritants. So that's why I say if you happen to eat chlorophyllum mollidities, you will be vomiting until you feel that your toenails is coming out from your vomit. Okay, it's very bad GI symptoms. Next. Okay, again, chlorophyllum mollidities. Okay, also a common cause of poisoning in Hong Kong. Next. Right. There is another species of Rossula subnigricans. This one we have not had cases yet in Malaysia, tapi Thailand, Taiwan, China ada. Okay. Rossula species are very brittle mushrooms. They are the type of mushrooms that break easily. Okay. And this particular Rossula species causes severe rhabdomyolysis. So when you undergo rhabdomyolysis, you end up with renal failure. Next. So how do we describe mushroom? Why is it important for us to describe? When we get a case and you want to refer, you need to know how to describe. You can't just tell us white mushroom. It's not helpful, right? Look at the cap, the size, the color, the texture. Feel the cap. Is it slimy? Is it warty? Is it smooth? The gills. Does the mushroom have gills or does it have pores? Remember, not all mushrooms have gills. The boletes don't have gills. They have a sponge-like for the spores. It looks like a sponge underneath. Okay? The stipe. Does it have a vulva? Where did it grow? Where did you harvest them? On dead wood? On a living tree? On the ground? Did it grow single? Did it grow in clusters? Next. Okay, so how do we approach? As emergency physicians and emergency people, we always start with our ABC, right? So it's airway, breathing, and circulation. If your patient is having seizures from the mushrooms, some mushrooms can cause seizures. You need to control the seizures, protect the airway. Okay? If there is a breathing issue, there's a lot of bronchoria from muscarine in your muscarine containing mushrooms, then you need to dry up the bronchoria with atropine. Intubation is not going to help the patient because the patient still cannot breathe. Okay? And of course, if the patient is having a lot of GI losses in hypovolemic shock from the vomiting and diarrhea, then you need to replace the volume with your IV fluids. You also need to ask important history like when did the patient ingest? How much did the patient ingest? Where did they harvest the mushroom? How many people ate the mushrooms? Okay. How many of them who ate classify into any of these syndromes? Sometimes patients come in with symptoms. It's not necessarily caused by the mushroom. It can be caused by something else. For example, somebody sprayed pesticide on that area. The patient ingested the mushroom from that area and developed GI symptoms. It may not be from the mushroom, it may be from the pesticide. Okay? And of course, try to get specimens if you can. Right. So look at the symptoms. If it is less than 6 hours, this is probably very good news. So you're dealing with either the GI irritants or the neurotoxic mushrooms. Usually it's benign, treat symptomatically, and the patient will recover. The problem is the late onset of symptoms. These are the ones that you need to be worried about, because these are the type of mushrooms that can be toxic to the liver or the kidneys. Next. So you can do GI decontamination, but how are you going to do GI decontamination if the patient is vomiting? Even if you give activated charcoal, the patient may not be able to hold it down. So in this case, you can give antiemetics to help you for the patient to hold down the charcoal. What we recommend is a single dose, 1 gram per kilo, activated charcoal. Give it as soon as possible with antiemetics. If
Dia benang kalau jadi yang biasa tak pernah ada perkiraan.
Okay, if you think that this might be an amatoxin containing mushroom, patient present late, more than 6 hours onset of symptoms, we recommend to give multi-dose activated charcoal instead of single-dose activated charcoal. This is because of the enterohepatic circulation. So when you give MDAC, it can continuously absorb the amatoxin and attempt to reduce the toxicity.
So the initial vomiting will be protective, right?
Yeah.
So the subsequent one is from what?
From
From the toxin that is being digested.
Yeah.
And absorbed into the
Yeah.
liver.
Okay. Gastric lavage is not recommended. Okay. Right, so this is the activated charcoal. Okay. Seizures in mushrooms, neurotoxic mushrooms that causes seizures. We used benzodiazepines in the initial treatment. For those that have intractable seizures, we give pyridoxine. For example, false morels can cause irretractable seizures. So we use pyridoxine for that. We don't advocate phenytoin in any toxicological related seizures. Okay. All right. For amatoxin, there has been some studies with silibinin. Silibinin and silimarin are alkaloids from the milk thistle. However, the outcome is not very encouraging. But since we don't have an antidote, you can try it. We don't have IV silibinin in Malaysia. But when we had the case in Kuantan, what we did was we asked the patient's family to go to the nearest pharmacy and buy milk thistle supplements that contains the highest content of silibinin. Itu suruh dia beli and ask the patient to take. But that one end up bukan amatoxin pun. Right? Okay, so any patients who present with delayed GI manifestations, when they improve, when you discharge them,
It's a flower.
eventually you will need to have a long-term follow-up, because we know some of these mushrooms, dia punya organ failure is delayed 1 to 2 weeks. So you cannot just discharge them home. You always have to ask them to come back. Boleh follow up kat KK. Okay. Basically, any patients with delayed GI manifestation, please don't discharge them, even though they improve clinically in your emergency department. Okay. Please, the early onset, if they improve, you can discharge. The delay, please admit. At least you monitor them, dia punya renal function and the liver function. Okay.
The liver function initially will be normal, right? It's 48 hours, 72 hours.
The liver function, the liver enzymes generally rise approximately dalam 36 hours and above. That's why we recommend to admit them, because if this is amatoxin containing mushroom, in the early first 24 hours, you're not going to see a rise in the transaminase. It will be delayed. That's why we advocate admit the loop. Once they've passed that 36 hours, if the liver enzymes has not raised, then most likely you're not dealing with an amatoxin containing. So you can discharge them if the symptoms improve, but you need to follow them up within 1 to 2 weeks, because this could also be a mushroom that contains oralanin, which is nephrotoxin. Okay, amen. Next. Okay, so this is what I just mentioned. Next. All right. So certain antidotes that we can use for mascarine containing mushrooms, we can give atropine. For amatoxin, we can use silibinine and multi-dose activated charcoal plus NAC. For gyrometral, that causes intractable seizures, we give high-dose pyridoxine. And for those hallucinogenic mushrooms, we use benzodiazepines. Next. So what are the myths? Some myth says that as long as the mushroom is white, it's safe to eat. And we all know that it's not true, right? Your chlorophyll is white. If you cook the mushroom, therefore it's safe, because the toxin is already destroyed by heat. And we also know this is not true. Toxin is not destroyed by heat. Right? It's heat labile, so you can still develop the toxicity.
Heat resistance.
Yeah.
Heat stable. Not
Heat
stable.
stable, heat stable, sorry. If the mushroom, you look at the mushroom and you see insects, that means if the insect eats the mushroom, that means it's safe for me to eat. This is also not true. You are human, you are not an insect. So it may be toxic to the insect. It may be safe for the insect, but it's not safe for you. Toxic mushrooms taste and smell bad. This is not true. Some of the most delicious mushrooms are toxic. And this is another myth. They say that if you the mushroom and you put a silver spoon to it and the silver turns black, then this is toxic. This is also not true. Okay, cooking, peeling, and drying mushrooms remove or inactivate the toxins. This is also not true. Okay, so we know that the toxicity of species varies depending on geographic location. And if you suspect toxic, please try to obtain samples. So that's why we sometimes advise those people who love to forage. When you forage for the wild mushrooms and you want to eat them, please don't cook everything and eat everything. Keep half. Cook half, keep half. So that in case anything happened to you, you have half of it, fresh specimen that you can bring for identification. Okay? Wild mushrooms should never be eaten raw. Okay? And sometimes some people develop mushroom allergy. Okay? New invoked wild mushrooms in specialty markets may not be entirely safe. This I totally agree. So you never order wild mushroom soup in a restaurant, no matter how high the Michelin star, because I don't trust the chef. Do you? Do you trust the chef for your identification of the wild mushroom? Do you trust your life in other people's hands? No, I don't. If I want to eat mushrooms, I eat store-bought mushrooms. That's it. Okay, so there are no old mushroom hunters and bold mushroom hunters. There are old mushroom hunters and bold mushroom hunters, but there are no old bold mushroom hunters. You get what I mean? Next. Okay, so these are some of the specimens and forage. Next. Okay, now we're going to plant. Right, so plant toxins, there are many. We are going to go through some of them. Anticholinergic, sodium channel effectors, your glycosides, mitochondrial cytotoxin convulsants, and irritants. Next. Let's look at anticholinergic. Banyak tak anticholinergic kat sini? Banyak kan? Tapi what I find our population are not adventurous. They are very boring. They don't experiment. No, really, they are very boring.
Unless you go for the Indian Ayurvedic, herbal medicine. Indian,
What?
they use a lot.
They use it for healing,
Or
traditional
whatever.
remedy. What I mean is to experiment.
Oh,
for fun.
Experiment.
but they use it also for self-help.
Suicide.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Suicide is a different category.
Yeah.
Right. So, you look at this atropa belladonna, that's where our atropine comes from, right? So this belongs under the Solanaceae family. Can you name me other plants under this family? Solanaceae? I'm sure at some point of time you would have eaten some of it. Dekat Langkawi ni, you all makan sayur meranti tak?
Buah.
Sayur meranti, bukan buah, sayur. Dekat Johor banyak sayur meranti. Sayur meranti ni dalam Solanum family juga. Okay? Terung. Terung kan? Tahu kan? Eggplant is also under the Solanaceae family. Terung has the highest content of nicotine.
Oh,
Habis lah, pasti semua makan terus.
That's why you don't eat terung raw, right? You have to cook kan? Alright?
yes, they eat some yang the small.
Fish.
Yeah.
Yes.
They eat raw. Yes.
They-
And then
But this one is terung pipit bukan eggplant. Eggplant dia Solanum melagrum. Terung pipit dia lain. Terung purple dia. Terung selatan. Okay, tomato is also under Solanum family.
we eat a lot of raw tomatoes.
Yes, it's fine.
So the dose is very good.
Okay, this is Solanum indicum. This is used in a lot of traditional remedy. Okay, next. Ni, kalau you pergi Cameron, siapa boleh, who knows what plant is this?
Angel strut.
Why angel? Why bukan devil?
White color.
So devil's trumpet is what color?
Black.
Angel's trumpet because the angels are in heaven, so they look down. So this is Romansia. Kalau you pergi Cameron banyak ni, a lot Romansia.
But Chan is looking up the skirt.
Cantiknya nanti lepas ni. So this contains atropine-like. It contains scopolamine. So it's anticholinergic. Ya? Kalau you nak have fun, tengok dia punya yang biji ni adalah datura atau kecubung. Kecubung. So where I went last time, teenagers, school kids like to take the seed pods. So they take this pot, they break open, dia akan keluar dengan seeds kecil-kecil macam biji cili. And what they do is they boil it to make tea, and then they drink the tea. So because it's anticholinergic, they have central anticholinergic, they have hallucinations. And the hallucinations can be quite bad. We had one 14-year-old who keep on seeing spiders crawling on the ceiling. And it lasts for weeks. Okay.
So literally becomes Spider-Man.
This is devil's trumpet. See, it's looking up in the heaven. So dia dekat bawah. Alright, sama juga. This is datura. They all contain anticholinergic. Next. Alright, so anticholinergic poisoning you all know lah kan? Red as a root, hot as a bear, tachycardia, dilated pupils, and then a little bit mad because of the central anticholinergic effect. So the antidote is physostigmine. Why not neostigmine? Can we give neostigmine?
Isn't it a conversion between Pfizer?
Why physo? If I don't have physostigmine, can I give neostigmine? I have neostigmine. Why? You can't because the central effect Physostigmine, you need to use it because this one crosses the blood-brain barrier. Neostigmine doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. So when your patient is hallucinating and high as the Empire State Building, you want to give physostigmine. Okay, next. Right. So calcium channel toxins. Sorry. Sodium channel toxins. Right. So this is aconitum or wolf's bane or monkshood. So dekat negara kita ni, dekat Malaysia kita tak ada. Tapi kita tak ada plant dia. Tapi kita ada aconitum. Daripada mana? Traditional Chinese medicine. Di kedai-kedai sisi ni dia akan jual aconitum because they use this for a traditional remedy. Alright?
What they call the Chinese?
Changsu, something like that lah. Dia ada different, how they cure the root. Dia ada lain-lain nama. Chanwu. Chinese. All the roots of the plant. Okay. Next. So they use it as a cardiotonic to repel your yin and yang. Ni dia punya akar. So how they process the wood and cure it. Then there are different dia punya potensi dia according to this the traditional sinsei.
It looks like macam buah dia. Dia
Lengkuas. Macam lengkuas kan. Tapi daun lengkuas tak macam ni. Right. Okay. So this is they harvest the wood, the root, and they process it. Okay. This one is the Indian aconitum. Called the Vishma. The Indian aconitum is the most toxic plant, basically. It blocks the acetylcholinesterase enzyme. So you get cholinergic crisis, and it acts a lot on the nicotinic receptors. So when you give a patient this Indian aconitum, they become paralyzed within an hour and they die from asphyxia. So there are a few cases of attempted murder using this Indian aconitum in UK. Right, next. Yeah. So when we talk about sodium channel, we always think about which organs? Medical. Heart and brain, good. Why? For the action potential, the depolarization. So anything to do with sodium, always think about heart and brain. Heart, arrhythmia, brain, seizures. So when it blocks the sodium channel, it can cause widening of the QRS, right? So anything sodium is neuro and cardiotoxic. So on the ECG, you can see a lot of arrhythmias. You can see widening of the QRS. Sebab dia susah nak depolarize. Next. Okay. Cardioactive steroids. Dekat Malaysia kita apa? Cardioactive steroid, of course, we're going to talk about digitalis, right? But Malaysia, we don't have digitalis. Right. So what do we have? Okay, digitalis. Digitalis, naturally, everybody will talk about digitalis when talking about cardioactive steroids. So this blocks the sodium potassium ATPase pump. Okay, next. So what do you see here? It is typical digitalis effect. This bukan digitalis toxicity. It's a digitalis effect. So what do you see then? It's the reverse state. Betul tak? Digitalis effect kan? They can present with tachy or brady. Usually we see bradyarrhythmia. And typically with this reverse state or Salvador Dali mustache. Yeah. So in our country, we don't have foxglove, but we have oleander. Ini kita nampak banyak dekat kubur banyak.
Highway.
highway, parking lot, you see a lot of this yellow oleander. Banyak kita. Okay. In Sri Lanka and India, this is very popular method of suicide. Every part of the plant is toxic. Every part. So apa dia orang akan ambil? Dia akan ambil buah. You see the fruit there? Next. Right. So dia akan ambil buah and makan. Okay. So every part is toxic. Next. Okay. This is the fruit. Next. Kita ada pokok upas atau pokok ipoh. Ni kat Malaysia. This also contains cardiac glycoside. Our aboriginal people in this country, kita pakai getah pokok ipoh ni untuk kita punya sumpit. Betul tak? Kan? Ya, betul. Sekarang ni tak tahu lah orang asli pakai sumpit ke tak. Pakai senapang. Tapi zaman dulu dia pakai sumpit. That's how they hunt the animal. Next. Okay, this one also banyak. I had a patient who had this toxicity. This is buah pompong. Pokok pompong, dia biasa tepi-tepi sungai. Yes, you will see a lot of this. Okay, this is used, orang kampung pakai as a rodenticide untuk bunuh tikus. Pompong ni. So this is also cardiac glycoside. I had a patient whose best friend gave him this fruit and told him, if you eat this fruit, it will cure you of your diabetes and your high blood pressure. So dia makan lah. Develop cardiac toxicity. Next. Okay. So mitochondrial toxins, kita ada banyak. Malaysia. Next. Cyanogenic glycosides are mitochondrial toxins. Apa ada cyanogenic glycoside dekat yang negara ni? Ubi kayu. Next. Tapioca. Tapioca banyak kan kita makan kan? Ubi kayu. Sebab tu zaman dulu-dulu atau nenek kita cakap ubi kayu tak boleh makan mentah. Cannot eat it raw. You have to cook it. Kan? Kalau kita celur buat ulam pun, daun ubi kayu pun, kita rebus, buang air dia, lepas tu kita masak. Betul tak? Sebab itulah kita nak keluarkan, we want to remove the cyanogenic glycoside. So apa lagi? Bamboo shoots. Bamboo shoots containing taxiphyllin, also cyanogenic glycosides. Ini banyak dekat kita. So, bamboo panggil apa? Pucuk rebung. Pucuk rebung pun kita boleh makan mentah kan? Yes.
Slice and soak.
Yeah. There was a published case in Thailand of these workers who were harvesting bamboo shoots in a production factory. They harvested these shoots and then they dump it inside a well. It's a well on the ground with water, and they dump the shoots inside the well, soak it. One worker slipped and fell into the well. So the friend saw, tried to help and fell in. Another came, tried to help them and also fell in. By the 8th person, the fellow said, no, I'm not going to help. So he ran for help. Called for help, then got these people out. By the time help came, one of them had died in the well. He didn't die from drowning. He died from cyanide toxicity. Okay, so I think 2 or 3, I can't remember, were quite bad, intubated in the hospital. The rest were quite mild. So the amount of taxiphyllin in that well was very high because they're dumping the fresh bamboo shoots. Banyak, they harvest, they dump, harvest, they dump. So the amount of taxiphyllin in that well was quite high, even to cause the first one who fell into the well cause mortality. All right.
For the tapioca, ubi kayu, you have to remove the outer layer,
Layer.
not just the kulit yang nipis tu. It's you have to cut and remove the thickened layer.
You can feel it.
Yang
White,
itu
white,
what
yes.
kind of that one contain higher
Kulit dia ke brown kan. Lepas tu after that dia ada satu
macam
layer.
purplish sikit.
Yes.
The leaf, all this.
The leaf can
The leaf also contain. Yes.
macam kau makan ubi. Rasa ubi. You have to boil first.
Yeah. You can't boil and use that water you boil to cook. You have to discard it. Right. Then the other fruits with pits, like your plum, peach, apricot, which we don't have it here, but I had a patient who tried to commit suicide with apple seeds. Apple seeds. You
All kinds
plan
of apple.
huh?
All kinds of apple.
Any apple with seeds. So you core the apple to you blend,
So when you drink apple, just make sure ask them to
remove the seeds. But when the amount of apple that we
Yeah.
drink in our juice is not much.
How troublesome it is to find so much of the apple seeds like that when I keep myself.
You must have dedication.
Yeah, he's very dedicated to guys.
Yeah.
I'll collect all the apple seeds, making so much.
I had a patient who took 600 grams of paracetamol. How do you swallow 600 grams of paracetamol? Blend it with ice cream.
That's a good idea.
600 grams of paracetamol. These are really suicidal who actually do the research online, they search for all the information, they search for the amount because they want a good success rate.
And tasty also.
Okay, so ini kita punya ubi ya. So make sure you masak. Next. Okay, so these are the fruits with kernels and pits. Right. Cytotoxins next. Okay, rices communis. This is castor bean, where your castor oil comes in. So we use castor oil in a lot of things. Sekarang ni ada trend, they say, oh, use castor oil for your skin. It's good for the skin, for the eyelash, and all these things. Why don't we get toxicity from that? We use castor oil in baking. Betul lah? Why don't we die from it? Ricin is highly toxic. Just a small amount, the size of a head of a needle is enough to kill you. But here we are baking with castor oil. So why? When they process the ricin, when they process the castor bean, they have to cook it. 60 degrees Celsius is enough to deactivate this ricin. Sebab tu dia masak, bila dia masak, then it becomes safe for us to ingest. This is the castor bean. Biji dia macam biji apa? Getah. Kan macam biji getah. Tapi dia kecil. Biji getah besar. Okay. Highly toxic. Inhibit cellular protein synthesis. Next.
Famous in espionage.
Yeah, spice.
The case, right? So you guys know the Russian, the umbrella? Yeah, with the umbrella injection.
Next. So, convulsions yang itu ada dekat Malaysia. Kita panggil kacang racun. Okay, kacang racun atau strychnos ignati containing strychnine. Zaman dulu kita pakai ni untuk bunuh tikus juga. And as a rodenticide. Strychnine, but it's no longer used as rodenticide because we have other types of poisons for rodents. So this increases your neural transmission in your neuromuscular junction, in your muscles. Then it causes severe muscle cramps and seizures. Strychnine is used a lot also in traditional Chinese medicine. Okay, so ini dia punya biji dia. Next. It's called, I don't know how to pronounce this. How do you pronounce this?
马钱子.
麻签子. So they use this for a lot of things, rheumatism, numbness. I had a patient with this again. A young man who was unwell with fever. So his brother was in China, and the brother is a traditional medicine specialist. So he consulted the brother, and the brother said, okay, you go and buy these seeds in the Chinese insane, you boil them, you take 10, you boil, and then you ingest. So he misunderstood. Instead of taking 10, he boiled the whole thing, everything, and drank it. So we have to be careful about the dose. Next, local irritation. Okay. So yang ni ada nampak tak? Banyak kan? It's usually ornamental plants, right? In our garden kan, this big giant elephant ear, giant taro. Okay. These contain apa? Next. These contains different bacteria, very popular. Popular. Okay. They contain calcium oxalate. Next. Right. So within the leaves of this plant, they contain this calcium oxalate crystal. You can't see it. You can only see it microscopically. See the raphe in that cell? Nampak tak? Yang tajam-tajam. Yes. That's a calcium oxalate crystal. So when you're not going to eat it, but normally children, curious, they bite, or pets, dogs, cats, they start chewing on the leaf. This calcium oxalate crystal will pierce out and puncture the mucosa. Then cause severe pain. Right? Then you see your cat or your dog drooling in pain. Next. So these are the calcium oxalate crystals. They are very sharp. Next. So they are under the Araceae family. Next. Okay. Others?
Daun ketuk.
Daun ketum. Sini mesti banyak. Malaysian kratom is better than Thai kratom. Our nitrogen content is higher. Yes, better. Tapi ramai orang tak tahu. Ramai orang kratom Thailand. Malaysian is better. So this is dose dependent. Okay, I am
I'm online.
Online and international.
Okay.
but I stand my ground. There are a lot of benefits with kratom compared to nicotine in tobacco. There are no benefits of nicotine at all. But kratom, yes. So it's dose dependent, depending on how much you take. The higher the amount you take, it will act more on the mu receptors. The lower you take, it causes a stimulant. Usually people take it for the alertness. So we see kita punya lorry drivers semua dia minum daun ketum sebab apa? Dia nak stay awake kan? But that is the alertness effect that they want. Tapi kalau you ambil higher dose, then you become drowsy.
How do you differentiate the dose that you should?
Because different plant, well, depending on the region, contain different contents of
Exactly.
nitrogen.
10 leaves here is going to be in fact it's more than 10 leaves from Thailand.
So you need to experiment.
Yeah.
That's why you need to experiment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, row one.
I'll fight for you.
Yeah, there are people who actually do this and then they experiment properly and then the experiment is correct. Because we don't have a lab to measure the amount of nitrogen.
So yeah. Chan can set up the lab.
You can use, actually, if you want to extract more
Langkawi
nitrogen,
is the Keratum.
Become the paradise of kratom.
ya, kalau you nak extract lagi banyak nitrogen dia, pakai get more actually. Next. Okay, ni kratom ya, okay. Right, okay, right. Thank you.